They say betrayal feels like being cut, not because it hurts, but because it comes from someone who was close enough to hold the knife. And if you'd told me 10 years ago that my best friend, the guy who stood beside me since high school, would one day sell me out for money, I wouldn't have believed you. But life has a way of teaching you the lessons you don't want, in the language you'll never forget. My name's Ethan Cole, and this is how my best friend betrayed me, and how I turned that pain into something he never saw coming. I grew up in Austin, Texas, in a small house with peeling paint and a leaky roof. We didn't have much, but we had ambition. My best friend, Tyler Grant, lived just 3 blocks down. He was everything I wasn't: loud, confident, charming. If life was a poker game, Tyler could bluff his way through anything. We met freshman year in business class. We were both broke kids dreaming of building something big. Tyler used to say, "One day, man, we're gonna be the guys people write about." And I'd laugh and say, "Only if you do the talking and I do the thinking." It was true. He had the mouth, I had the mind. Together, we were unstoppable. After college, we both worked soul-sucking jobs, him in sales, me in software development. But one night, over cheap beer and leftover pizza, we decided to take the leap. We started our own company, a small tech startup called Pulse Track. It began in my garage. I coded for days. Tyler pitched investors with that silver tongue of his. We built an app that helped small businesses track customer feedback in real time. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Within 2 years, we had an office downtown, 6 employees, and a couple of angel investors. We weren't rich, but we were on the map. And every time I looked at Tyler, my best friend, my brother in business, I felt proud. We did it. Together. Success changes people. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not. By our 3rd year, money started rolling in. Not millions, but enough to turn heads. We started getting noticed by bigger companies, even offers for acquisition. That's when Tyler started changing. He began showing up late, buying expensive watches, talking more about leverage and control than teamwork. He stopped calling me partner and started calling me the tech guy. At first, I brushed it off. We were stressed. Building something real isn't easy. But then one afternoon, I walked into a meeting I wasn't invited to, only to find Tyler sitting across from a venture capitalist, pitching my product as his own. I froze in the doorway. When the meeting ended, I pulled him aside. "What the hell was that?" I demanded. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Ethan, relax. It's just business." That was the first time he said that to me. It wouldn't be the last. 2 weeks later, he called a board meeting. We sat in the glass conference room, sunlight bouncing off the polished table, my heart pounding. He cleared his throat and said, "Ethan, the investors think the company needs new leadership." I blinked. New leadership? What are you talking about? He smiled, that fake PR smile, and slid a folder across the table. Inside was a buyout offer. My shares. My company. My dream. "Sign it," he said. "You'll get a decent payout. Go start something else." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so unreal. "Tyler, I built this company with you. You can't just push me out." He leaned back. "I already did." Turns out, while I was busy coding and managing the team, he'd been quietly convincing the investors that I was a liability, too emotional, too inexperienced. He restructured the shares, diluted my voting rights, and got the board on his side. In one afternoon, I went from co-founder to nobody. I remember walking out of that building in shock, the Texas sun blinding me. I didn't even have the words to describe what I felt. I'd lost everything, not to a competitor, but to my best friend. The next few months were hell. My name was off the company site. My work, my ideas, all stripped from me. Tyler kept the logo, the patents, the staff. He even sent me an email thanking me for my contributions. I tried to sue, but the contracts were airtight. I'd trusted him completely, never realizing how deep the betrayal ran. I lost my apartment. My girlfriend left, said I was too obsessed with revenge. And I won't lie, I was. Every night, I'd sit on my couch staring at my laptop, replaying every conversation, every handshake, every sign I'd ignored. But one night, maybe the lowest of them all, I realized something. He took my company. But he didn't take me. I still had my skills, my ideas, my drive. And somewhere deep inside the anger, I felt something else, fire. So I started over. No investors. No partners. No fancy office. Just me, my laptop, and a rented studio apartment that smelled like paint thinner. I called the new company Blue Ridge Analytics. This time, I focused on data intelligence for small manufacturers, a space Tyler would never touch. I worked like a madman. 18-hour days. Cold coffee. Sleepless nights. But every line of code felt like revenge, not on him, but on the version of me that once gave up. It took 2 years before we landed our first big client, a Midwest logistics company that loved our system. From there, things snowballed. We grew from 1 man to 10, then 50. By year 5, Blue Ridge had offices in Dallas, Chicago, and Denver. We weren't flashy, but we were solid, profitable, respected, real. Meanwhile, I'd see Tyler's company, Pulse Track, in the news. At first, it boomed. Then came scandals, layoffs, and failed updates. He'd gone too big, too fast. I watched quietly. Never gloated. Just worked. One morning, I got an email from a finance firm I'd never heard of. They represented a private equity group that wanted to buy a controlling stake in Pulse Track. I laughed when I read the name. The company was bleeding money. Their stock had dropped 70%. And the buyer they were negotiating with? It was me. Not directly, of course. Through a holding company I'd built under Blue Ridge Capital. It was poetic justice. The man who once stole my company was now desperate for a bailout, and I was holding the checkbook. We met in a downtown Dallas boardroom, the same kind of room where he'd blindsided me years ago. He walked in late, wearing an expensive suit that didn't quite hide the exhaustion in his face. His hair was thinner, his charm dimmer, but that smirk was still there. "Ethan," he said, squinting. "Wow, man. Didn't think I'd see you again." I smiled politely. Life's full of surprises. He didn't recognize that I was the buyer. Not yet. We discussed the numbers. He bragged about strategic vision and restructuring opportunities. I just listened, the way he used to when I talked about code, patient, polite, already knowing the outcome. When the final documents were ready, I slid the last page toward him. He picked up the pen and froze when he saw the signature line. Ethan Cole, CEO, Blue Ridge Capital. He looked up, color draining from his face. "Wait," he whispered. "You're the buyer." I leaned back in my chair and said, "No, Tyler. I'm the owner." The silence in that room was thick enough to choke on. He dropped the pen. "You can't do this," he said. "This is my company." I smiled. Funny. I remember saying the same thing once. He tried to negotiate, to appeal to the old friendship. "Ethan, come on, man. We were brothers. You can't just take this away from me." I said calmly, "You already did that once. I'm just returning the favor, legally and with interest." He slumped back in his chair. For the first time, I saw not the confident salesman, but the scared boy behind the mask. I didn't enjoy it. I thought I would, but I didn't. Because in that moment, I realized something powerful. Revenge doesn't heal you. Closure does. A few months after the deal closed, I restructured the company, merged Pulstrax Tech into Blue Ridge, kept half the staff, and stabilized operations. Tyler, of course, was gone. He sent me an email once, just one line. "I guess you won after all." I never replied. Because it wasn't about winning. It was about reclaiming what I'd lost. Not the company, but myself. Today, I'm 38. Blue Ridge is valued at over $500 million. We employ more than 600 people nationwide. I live in a modest home in Frisco, Texas. Nothing fancy. No flashy cars. No designer suits. I still code some nights, just to remind myself where I came from. People ask me all the time, "Do you regret trusting Tyler?" And the truth is, no. Because without that betrayal, I'd still be the man who believed friendship was a substitute for judgment. I'd still think loyalty meant blindness. And I'd never have learned what true resilience feels like. Betrayal doesn't break you. It reveals who you were meant to become. Last year, I got an unexpected call. A recruiter said a man named Tyler Grant was applying for a mid-level sales position at one of my subsidiaries. I sat in silence for a full minute before saying, "Schedule the interview." He walked into my office 2 weeks later, clearly nervous. He didn't recognize me at first. I'd grown a beard, and time had carved a few lines on my face. "Mr. Cole," he asked, "I'm here about the regional sales role." I smiled. "I know who you are, Tyler." He froze. "Oh, Ethan." There it was, the moment he realized the world had turned full circle. He stammered something about starting over and second chances. I let him talk the way I used to. When he was done, I said, "I believe in second chances. I just don't give them where trust was broken." He nodded slowly. "I understand." Before he left, I added, "But I also believe in respect. So here's one thing you should know. Despite everything you did, I don't hate you. In a strange way, you pushed me to become better than I ever imagined." He didn't say anything, just nodded, eyes glistening, and walked out quietly. That was the last time I saw him. Sometimes I drive past that old garage where it all began, the one with the rusted door and faded "For Rent" sign. I stop, sit in my car, and think about how far things have come. From betrayal to rebuilding, from being thrown out of my own company to owning it all, it's been a long road. But I wouldn't trade a single mile of it. Because every betrayal teaches you two things: who they are and who you are. And I learned that who I am is someone who doesn't quit. In life, people will betray you, use you, and try to write your ending for you. But the beautiful thing about life is this: you hold the pen. So when they think they've closed your chapter, write a new one. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be.